Welcome, everyone, to another meaningful and empowering live chat. Today, we are diving into a topic that affects so many people, often silently trauma and the nervous system. Joining us is Varsha Sukhu, who will help us unpack how trauma lives not only in the mind, but also in the body, and how it can shape our emotions, behaviors, relationships, and everyday lives. We'll be exploring survival responses like fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, the importance of somatic healing, and practical ways people can begin regulating their nervous systems and moving toward healing. Whether you're personally on a healing journey, supporting someone else, or simply looking to understand trauma more deeply, this is a conversation you won't want to miss. Varsha, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. How are you, Varsha?
I'm good, thanks to you, Siddharth. Thanks for having me.
Ah, it's my pleasure. And yeah, I told you off air, it has been a while.
It has. I feel like it's almost been a year, so much has happened. And it's only like, what, 6 months?
Yeah, that's true, hey? So, yeah, to get the ball rolling with you, Varsha, trauma is often described as something that lives in the body as much as the mind. From your perspective, how does trauma affect the nervous system, and why is understanding this connection so important for healing?
Absolutely. So there is a mental health aspect to trauma because it is an event that we need to psychologically heal from. But when we experience traumatic events or something that basically is bad in nature, or what we would call negative or bad, it also affects our nervous system, and it causes our nervous system to dysregulate. And what that means is our body is actually affected when traumatic events happen. And sometimes it doesn't happen when the trauma or the event occurs. It can start happening days, weeks, months, even years afterwards, and your body starts to get affected, not just your mind and your emotions.
Awesome. Uh, Many people live in constant fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses without realizing it. How can someone identify when their nervous system is stuck in a survival state?
This is a really interesting question because I think most people assume, you know, the theory or the metaphor, you've met with a lion, you either run away or you fight it, right? But fight, flight, freeze, and fawn actually mean very real things that happen in our day-to-day lives. So flight is not just running away, it's disassociating, it's perhaps overworking yourself. It is just not wanting to engage with what is going on around you. So that's what flight is. Fight is not actually fighting, but it can be things like irritability, it can be snapping at people. Fawning is people pleasing, not sticking to your boundaries. And if you're one of those people that struggles to keep your boundaries in place, it might actually be the result of trauma. What have we missed? Fawn, fight, fight, freeze.
Oh, freeze,
Freeze,
yeah.
yes. So freeze is an interesting one as well because it doesn't mean that you don't do anything. You might
Mhm.
feel numb. You might feel like you've got a bit of a brain fog. You might also actually feel like you're stuck. You're not motivated. You can't seem to move forward or gain momentum or traction in anything that you're doing. And that can sometimes be that traumatic phase or nervous system dysregulation that you're in, that you're trying to heal from, and you may not see the signs.
Awesome. I have a comment question for you here. Are you okay if I ask it to you now?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Awesome. Okay, this is from Rishchitan. Hi, Varsha. Interesting topic indeed. How does a disorientated person realign while struggling with trauma?
So it's also important to understand what response you have to trauma. So occasionally it's observing the pattern of behavior that you have. So you understand, listen, am I struggling with boundaries? Am I struggling with lack of motivation? Am I just irritable and snapping at people? Part of it is obviously speaking to a mental health practitioner, a coach, psychologist, therapist, and a large part of it is also understanding what your body is doing. The first thing you need to do is understand your body's reaction so you can also identify when you're doing something. I know it sounds really easy. It's very easy to say, oh, just observe your body. But sometimes we
Yeah.
react to a situation and we don't know we're doing it until it's too late. I want to say if you've been through a traumatic experience and you are struggling, or you've been through childhood stuff, toxic workplace environments, you've been through something where you are struggling to heal, or you are healing years, months later, keeping a diary helps in the sense that you understand what you've been through that day. What are your triggers? What are the emotional triggers? But also understanding, okay, today my body was stressed. Today I had a migraine, or today I was really unmotivated. And you can kind of see the pattern. Sometimes seeing the pattern helps you to understand where the disorientation comes from. And then you can start working on it, because then you understand what your body is doing, what your mind is doing. I hope that made
What?
sense.
Yeah, definitely. What are some physical signs or symptoms of a dysregulated nervous system that people commonly overlook or misinterpret in everyday life?
First of all, I want to say that illnesses are very real. So if you've been diagnosed with something, autoimmune illness, chronic pain, rare illness, whatever it is, those are very real. We're not taking away anything from that whatsoever. But physically, the body has a response to trauma or negative things happening in your life. Remember, you go into survival mode when you are in flight, freeze, fawn mode. Your mind, your body is in survival mode. That's all it wants to do. And when it's in that space, it's just reacting. And when it's reacting, you might experience headaches. You might have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. The jaw is a big one. The tension in the jaw, clenching your jaw,
Mm.
especially I'm one of those. When you clench your jaw at night and you wake up in the morning and you can just feel the tension right here, or you get headaches really often, digestive issues, these are all signs that your body is saying, I need help. Something's going on. Please pay attention. So it might seem like little things, even getting sick regularly, where you might just have a cough or sore throat. Um, you might feel really fatigued and tired, and it might be up and down. It's not always, I am now tired for the next 3 months. It's you're tired for a few days and you suddenly have energy, then you're tired again. And yes, part of it is actual illnesses that we're experiencing. And a large part of it is also the body trying to heal from trauma.
Could you say that it's mainly like stress related that kind of causes these issues like trauma and all that?
So, trauma are events that take place in our lives, and it's how we feel about them. So you and I can go and experience the same thing, but only one of us might feel trauma after that. The other
Okay.
thing is, because we all experience or react to trauma in a different way,
Mm.
we wouldn't have the same physical reactions. So I might clench my jaw or have a sore throat because I'm persistently sick, whereas
Mm.
somebody might have headaches or digestive issues, which is why it's sometimes difficult to kind of say it's a one solution fits everybody. It's very unique to the individual and their experiences. I think also when it comes to physical ailments, if anyone has read Louise Hay's book, what is it, Heal Your Life, I think that's what it's called, but she talks a lot about our physical reactions and how they are linked to trauma, which includes your chronic illnesses and your autoimmune diseases. And if you think about something like fibromyalgia, for example, it's complete physical body pain because you're braced for the worst to happen. You're braced for something bad to take place. So your body is constantly in survival mode because you're waiting for that danger to come into your life. And that's how the two kind of connect with the body pain, but it's technically an illness, but it's also technically a result of trauma. So it's all very, very interlinked.
Interesting. How does childhood trauma shape the development of the nervous system differently compared to trauma experienced later in adulthood?
Kids are a very tricky bunch, kids and teens, because this is the phase, and listen, we all know that. It doesn't even matter if you have kids. If you just know teens and kids,
Mm.
you'll know. You know if you know. But when they are in that phase in their life, especially from a young age till about 12, they are creating the foundations of how they see the world. They are creating the foundations of how they will react to situations, emotions, trauma, events that take place in their lives. And if something happens during that time period, it can definitely shape or reshape the foundations on which they will react to something. So, for example, if we're adults, we understand what anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, etc., looks like, feels like. We understand our body's reaction to something. Remember, also, we can take leave days. We can go to a mental health practitioner. As adults, we have a little bit more freedom. Kids don't. They just know they're angry, they're sad, they're upset. But sometimes it's almost like they see it or they feel it after it's taken place. So they
Mm.
will have their little meltdown or their tantrum and then realize, oh,
Mm.
okay, maybe I've overreacted, or why did I get so upset? Actually, they don't even question why. Let's be honest. They don't ask that
Oh.
question. But if you have to ask them, what made you so upset? Why did you react in that way? I don't know. It's just, it is what it is.
Mm.
But it becomes part of who they are. And that's where the danger is with childhood
Mm.
trauma and not dealing with it. Once you hit adulthood, especially if you've had trauma in your childhood, it affects you as an adult. However, when you have it as an adult, a traumatic experience like a toxic workplace environment, I'd be very worried if there are 11 and 12-year-olds who've had toxic workplace environments versus, a 28, 29-year-old. You handle it differently. It's still traumatic, it's still hectic and intense, but it doesn't affect you the same way it would affect a child.
Yeah, I would hope that 11 to 12-year-olds don't have to be in that experience because nobody, that's a play time, compared to an adult.
I really hope so. I will be very worried if there are a lot of 11 and 12-year-olds working at the moment.
True. In your work, how do somatic practices help regulate the nervous system and support trauma recovery in a safe and sustainable way?
When we look at the nervous system, when we look at the body's responses to things, before you get anxious, actually, even while you're anxious, if you are depressed, if you are angry, there is almost a physical reaction or physical things that take place for each of us when we're experiencing those emotions. When you're angry, you might clench your fists, for example. When you are anxious, your breathing will change and you might not be able to take deep breaths in and out. When you are depressed or sad, your shoulders will hunch over. There is a physical reaction that correlates with the emotion that you are experiencing. Now, when we look at the physicality of trauma, it helps us to identify what's going on with our body. It's almost like a warning system that's in place for us, where our body's saying, hold up, something's going on. Hold on, you're reacting to something and I'm feeling it. Remember, we talked about going into survival mode. That's what your body's doing. Your body's sensing the danger. Your body is sensing, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Something is happening. I am waiting for something bad to happen, or something bad is happening or going to happen. Your body's reacting to that. And that's the first sign of listening to yourself, two separate words, your and self, and understanding, okay, I'm now healing something or something needs to be worked on because I'm reacting as opposed to just experiencing life.
Can unresolved trauma keep the nervous system in a state of hypervigilance or emotional shutdown for years? And how does this affect relationships, confidence, and daily functioning?
Absolutely. Our nervous system is a very important part of our lives. And a regulated nervous system, I want to say it's easy to do, but it's actually really not. If we think about everything
Mm.
we've all been through in the last 6 years, right? COVID, changes with the economy, everything that's happening around the world, there is a lot impacting all of us financially, mentally, emotionally. So it's actually not that easy to say, just regulate your nervous system, right? When you have a dysregulated nervous system, you are always waiting for the danger, right? You're
Mm.
always prepared for something bad to happen. And the way that impacts you is you're not experiencing life, you're not living in the moment, you're not happily enjoying a relationship, you're not enjoying a pregnancy, you are not enjoying success at work. When you are emotionally dysregulated in terms of that, you see things through a different lens. And when you see things through a different lens, it impacts everything around you. So if you are anxious, or you are in fight mode where you're irritable and you're snapping at people, instead of enjoying your workspace, which is maybe actually a really great place to be at, but because you are healing maybe from a toxic workplace environment that you were previously at, you might be ready to say, oh, everyone's out to get me. I can't trust anybody. That's how it changes your thinking. But physically, you'll see, I just took a little bit of a step back. It's the same thing. Physically, if you say, you know what, I don't trust people or I need to back off, you move
Yeah.
backward. And it's the same with relationships. If you've experienced things in the past, or you are healing or not healing from trauma, it affects your relationship. If anyone has been in a relationship, you will know, especially when you've got a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend who is irritable, snappy, shuts down, disassociates, can't keep up their boundaries, and you're seeing that they are reacting to something, it's very, very present. And there's a domino effect that kind of links with everything that happens in our lives.
But is it easy to rather say that you can use your mind to kind of control how you handle things, or is it really not that simple?
I want to say it's that simple. You know, that whole mind over matter, just
Mm.
put your mind to it. You can manifest anything you want. Look, you really can. None of that is impossible at all. But there has to be something that makes you stop and go, okay, let me listen to my body. You
Mm.
know, it's not healthy to ignore what you've been through, to push it aside,
Of
because
course.
that actually is saying, okay, I'm not dealing with it. So
Mm.
not wanting to listen to it. That's also a reaction of unhealed trauma, is not wanting to deal with it. So listen, mind is powerful and strong, but your body is just your warning system to say, maybe there's something you're missing.
True. What role do breathwork, grounding, movement, or mindfulness play in calming the nervous system after traumatic experiences?
I would say it is preventative, not curative. So when we're looking at breath work, we're looking at grounding ourselves, we're looking at doing any of those things, you are kind of saying to your body, you know what? I understand that you're going to have moments where you just want to have a meltdown, but actually, we need to stop and breathe. Actually, we need to maybe monitor ourselves, just observe our behavior, observe how we're doing things. The breath work helps a lot, especially if you have anxiety or potential rage or anger issues, because the breath work helps to ground you. Grounding practices where it's maybe painting, it's drawing, it's stuff that keeps you calm and you centered. It is very, very important for your mental health. And you'll also see that it dominoes again into your physical health and well being.
Is it normally when I'm like anxious, I'm just saying a type of God's name, like Om or Shiva's name or something like that? Is that kind of helpful for most people in
Absolutely.
our situation?
Listen, I think prayer is a very powerful thing. I really do. And there are times when I am super stressed or super anxious, and that is my go to thing. And it doesn't have to be a
Ah,
specific religion, it doesn't have to be a
mm,
specific mantra or a specific
yeah, yeah.
person. And people use affirmations, you know, I
Mm,
am powerful, I am enough, I can get through this, I can do anything. So, whatever works for you, which is why I always say it's an individual's choice,
mm.
not so much one size fits all. And I think people need to find what works for them and do that. If chanting or praying works for you, fantastic. It may not work for the next person.
Of
If
course.
breath work doesn't work for somebody, it may work for the next person. So again, it's finding what works for you, your body, and what you're experiencing.
Awesome. For someone who feels overwhelmed by anxiety, emotional numbness, or burnout, what are some gentle first steps they can take to begin regulating their nervous system?
The first really big step is finding things you like, things that you enjoy doing. And honestly, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It doesn't matter if it's weird, if it's out there, if it's too normal. It's what works for you and your nervous system. If it is playing outside with your dogs, if it is sitting with your cat, if it is cooking, drawing, painting, if it's going for a hike, going for a swim in the beach, whatever works for your body, your nervous system, your mind, do that. That is the first step you can do. Identify something that fills your cup, that makes you feel good, that kind of creates that safe space and safe environment for yourself.
Lovely. How can parents, teachers, or caregivers create emotionally safe environments that help children develop a healthier and more resilient nervous system?
I would love to say that it is an easy thing to do, right?
Mm.
But the first thing and most important thing is to create a supportive environment for your kids. Or even if it's somebody else's kids, if you're an aunt, uncle, cousin, whatever, listening to this, the first thing you can do is make sure that the kids and teens know you are open to listening. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It doesn't mean
Oh,
you need to, say, yes, you are correct. But they need to have somebody that they can feel heard, they can feel supported with. They know I can trust you to tell you something. I think the hardest thing to do is to not judge. So it's to
mm.
listen and support and hear without judgment, because I mean, we're both Indians at heart. So like the first thing you want to do is be
Mm.
like, oh, no, no, that's not what we do. That doesn't work here. But it also doesn't work with the kids. The minute they know or sense they're going to be judged, or they're going to be unheard or not supported, they shut down and will not trust or
Yeah.
speak. So creating that environment itself does help a lot. Look, a big tip that I can give you that works a lot with the kids and teens that I work with is when you share your stories. And for all the parents or anyone listening who've had some very interesting stories growing up, maybe don't share all of them, but share the ones that you are comfortable sharing, that creates that trust and that connection with them, so they know, okay, listen, my aunt or uncle has already been through this. They've also had a history. They've also been to school. They've also been through something. I can trust them enough to share my experiences too. And that's what you want.
I guess the problem is if kids don't get heard, they'll just become rebellious, and that's the worst type of scenario.
Unfortunately, if they're not rebellious, they become almost like a split personality, where they are one person in front of friends at school,
Mm.
and then they're one person at home. And I think
Yeah.
that is sometimes the biggest struggle that schools and parents have, is it's like, but my child would never, but this child would never. But what you don't see is at home, there isn't necessarily a supportive and I'm not saying not loving. Okay? You can be a
Oh.
loving parent, but you may have difficulty listening to your child. This
Mm.
is going to be like a one that some of the parents may not be too thrilled about, but things like crushes. Okay. In our Indian tradition, right, it's not something you talk about. It's not something that you
Mm.
openly have a conversation. But for me, I have a daughter. It's very important that she feels she can come and talk to me. I'm not going to force it out of her. I'm not going to, make sure she tells me every single detail about everything, but so that she knows if there is something happening in her life, she can come and have a conversation with me, because I would rather have that conversation take place with me than another 12-year-old who may not have the same judgment, experience, or intelligence emotionally to deal with whatever she's saying. And I think that's so important, is as adults, we come with the experience, we come with the knowledge and the education behind our life experience. The other kids don't. So they're all giving each other advice based off of what they're watching or hearing from someone else. And as an adult, you want these kids and this generation to open up, not to shut down, not to become two different people. You want them to be who they are in a safe, loving, nurturing environment.
Yeah, it looks like Rishton agrees with you here as well in her own way. A silent kid is detrimental. Parents should pay attention and be active.
Absolutely. Look, I don't necessarily blame all parents or anything like that. Sometimes kids are really good at hiding stuff. They really are. But a silent kid is a red flag, or a child that seems like they're always obedient at home. I mean, mine is an introvert. So she's very quiet in school, but at home,
Oh,
the rolling of the eyeballs, the side eye, I see it. So should someone tell me my child was sarcastic to somebody else or at school, I will fully 100% believe it. At home, she is not a silent kid. And I think the struggle is a lot of parents don't understand that a fully obedient, mild mannered, perfect child on the outside might house a lot of stuff that they're not telling you on the inside.
Awesome. Finally, looking at the bigger picture, do you believe society is becoming more aware of nervous system health and trauma-informed healing? And what changes would you like to see in schools, workplaces, and communities?
This is a really tough one because I think whilst we're making really big strides in certain spaces, especially around having open conversations, there are certain things that I feel could definitely be done better or differently. I think there are still a lot of taboos around mental health, and especially with kids. Or teens, even young adults. I want to say anyone actually between under the age of 21, actually, where people feel okay, mental health for that age group is not really a thing. They haven't experienced life enough to have mental health issues. But in actual fact, they experience a lot more nowadays than, our generation or generations before that. And schools are definitely taking it a lot more seriously. They are taking nervous system regulation a lot more seriously. They are paying attention to kids who have anxiety, ADHD, various things, but it's the boundaries. I think the difficulty is with the amount of information that the kids have access to these days, whether it's in school with other friends, kids, iPads, phones, TVs. There's so much at their fingertips. It's difficult to keep those boundaries in place. And schools, also, some of them find it very difficult to also keep those boundaries in place because they want to be forward thinking, they want to be liberal minded. The problem is that you've got to find that balance between liberal minded and enforcing the boundaries that are safe and healthy for kids. I think even the communities are starting to, create youth groups. You are seeing a lot more clubs and teen and kid-friendly activities for various types of personalities. It's not the same as dance, drama, chess, and the sports. There's various other things for kids to do, which I think greatly benefits them in the long run, especially with the nervous system regulation, because it's finding things that make you happy. And let's be honest, maths and science don't always make us happy. But if you are taking part in art club at school, or you're doing something that makes you happy outside academically, I think you're going to win with the youth if we can create a sense of unity and create a sense of understanding so they don't feel unheard and like there's injustices placed upon them. It's actually, we're loving, open, warm, but keeping boundaries in place.
Yeah. Funny thing is, back in the day when I was small, although now I just sound old saying that, but I used to love maths, but then for some reason I ended up switching off. And with art, it was more like I had to do it. So I don't know if that was in your case.
So listen, I was terrible at maths. I'm still
Oh,
terrible at. Yep. My child comes to me with anything, anybody comes to me with anything related to numbers. My first thing, even if I'm going out with somebody and like the bill gets handed, where you have to like split the bill up.
mm,
Like, nope. Any accountants at the table can take this, but don't give it to me. You guys want to learn about the nervous system, or you have stress,
mm,
anxiety, then give me the bill, but not if there's numbers. I think for me it was a lot of the drama and the dance, and it still
okay.
is. So somatic movement, dance, I guess the two kind of come together. But the dance for me is a big stress reliever. And that's why I say dance is not for everybody. There are some people who would not find it a stress reliever. They would find it very stressful.
Yeah.
So see, there we go. But like I don't suck at art, but it's not necessarily
Mm,
my but for
yeah.
somebody else, it might actually be, especially if you are someone who has to constantly socialize with people, or you have patients, for example, if you're a doctor, you want that quiet time, shut down, no noise, no people, something just soothing for your soul.
Awesome. As usual, always a pleasure to have you, Varsha, and I will definitely keep in touch with you again in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Siddharth.
Take care.
Bye.